Famous guns. Guns that are infamous, such as the Charter Arms 38 Undercover, used to kill famous hippie John Lennon. I call it the Imagine There's No Oxygen pistol, and fuck Marlboro. Say hello to the real cowboy killer. Behold the Carcano, not used by a low-ranking soldier and Manchurian candidate to blow JFK's brains out along with all other passengers in rapid succession while said victims were in a moving vehicle. Also proof that John Moses Browning's designs are without flaw. I was actually thinking about getting a Charter in 9mm. Now I just want one for meme's sake, so now it's in my bucket list. Why isn't this advertised on their website? The Pitbull and Bulldog revolvers are available in 9mm, and appear to have the same styling as the Undercover used by Chapman. Yeah, for pure meme potential, carrying the ultimate hippie killer is pretty fucking cool. Also, nice contribution. Didn't think of Franz Ferdinand or JFK. Shit, what'd they use to murk Bobby Kennedy? Also, Browning was incapable of making bad weapons. God himself helped that man. A 22 caliber Iver Johnson cadet model revolver. The weapon used by Sirhan to gun down Robert Kennedy, Democratic nominee for President of the United States of America. A Fabrique Nationale M1910, chambered in .380, serial number 19074. The gun used to kill Archduke Franz Ferdinand and start the war that probably broke Western morality. Browning sure made them reliable. September 8, 1935. Wei Long is killed by a lone gunman who walked up and shot him with an FN 1910, a popular assassination gun. On March 16, 1984, Gary Plouffe shot and killed the pedophile who raped his son. As far as I can tell, he used a .38 hollow point fired from a Smith & Wesson Model 19 .357 revolver. Can't say I blame Gary. The gun that cures pedophilia. The .32 Iver Johnson safety automatic revolver used to kill William McKinley on September 14, 1901. Iver Johnson apparently has 2 presidential kills to its name. April 14, 1865. Arch-Yankee and general all-around shitheel Abraham Lincoln is shot in the head with a .44 fired from an original Henry Derringer pocket pistol. He died from complications following loss of his brains the following day. On February 21, 1965, Malcolm X, leader of Muslim Mosque Inc. and the Organization of Afro-American Unity, was assassinated during an Organization of Afro-American Unity meeting at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan. More well known as the leader of the Nation of Islam. He was shot at least 21 times with a mix of 12-gauge 9x19 Luger and 45 ACP. There is still some controversy surrounding who exactly shot him, and the actual murder weapons have never been revealed. Supposedly, a 12-gauge sawn-off was found nearby discarded in a jacket. The exact brand was never revealed. Talmadge Hayer was identified as the shooter with the shotgun and beaten severely by the crowd before police arrived. He suffered several broken ribs and a broken leg. Several witnesses were also hit with gunfire. The assassination began with a man in the crowd shouting, "Hey, get your hand out of my pocket." Malcolm X, standing at the podium, then reportedly said, "Hey, cool it!" And as the crowd whirled around in confusion, a man stepped towards the stage and fired a single blast from a concealed sawn-off shotgun. While he was then beaten and pulled down by the crowd, Malcolm X's bodyguards stepped towards the first assassin, leaving a bleeding and wounded Malcolm temporarily alone at the podium. Then 2 more gunmen from the crowd stepped forward and fired a mix of 45 ACP and 9x19 Luger rounds into his body. The cause of death was listed as several rounds to the heart. On August 25, 1967, in Arlington, Virginia, the leader of the American Nazi Party was gunned down at the Dominion Hall shopping center while trying to do his laundry. George Lincoln Rockwell was shot by former National Socialist John Padler from the rooftop of the shopping center when he went out to his car to go and get bleach to clean his clothes at the laundromat. Padler was arrested half an hour later after throwing his gun into a 4-mile run nearby, when he was spotted with wet trousers waiting for a bus by a police officer. Police say 2 shots were fired from a rooftop of a beauty salon across the street from the Dominion Hill shopping center. 2 bullets went through the windscreen of the 49-year-old's blue and white Chevrolet and hit him in the head and the chest. He died instantly. Eyewitnesses said the Nazi leader was reversing his car out of the parking space in the shopping center when the incident happened. As the shots hit his car, he dived onto the passenger seat in an attempt to escape. His car apparently crashed into another vehicle. A coroner pronounced him dead at the scene. George Lincoln Rockwell, who lived just yards from the scene of his death, founded the American Nazi Party, originally known as the World Union of Free Enterprise and National Socialists, in 1959. John Patler was expelled from the party that previous April for Bolshevik leanings. The weapon used was reportedly a C-96 broom-handle Mauser firing the 7.63 by 25mm Mauser round. John was accused of having stolen this exact weapon from the American Nazi Party headquarters. Spent shells of the same type were found on his local farm. I have two here. First is the .442 Webley British Bulldog used by one Charles Guiteau to assassinate President Andrew Garfield. Mr. Guiteau was a Republican Party member who had canvassed support for Garfield during the 1880 election, and expected to be rewarded with a government position, as was the fashion in politics at the time. Guiteau wanted to be named ambassador to the Qing court in China, despite not actually speaking Chinese and knowing next to nothing about China. Garfield, who had no idea who Guiteau even was, rejected his demand for a job, so after purchasing the aforementioned Webley with ivory grips, as it would look more striking in a museum. So after following Garfield's schedule for days, and neglecting to kill him at one point because Garfield had his wife with him, and Guiteau did not want to upset the poor woman, he eventually struck on July 2nd, 1881. Firing two shots that hit Garfield in the back, one shattering a vertebrae but not actually hitting the spine. Garfield lingered for months before finally succumbing to infection, because his retired doctors kept poking his wound with their bare fingers, dying on September 19th of that same year. Guiteau was found guilty and sentenced to hang on June 30th, 1882. His last words was him reciting a poem he had written called, "I am going to the Lordy," though famously he was overpowered by the jeers from the crowd to the point he stopped and shouted at them, "You are all low, consummate jackasses." And that was the execution of the 20th President of the United States. A classic, the Nagant revolver was used to kill Sergei Kirov, a close friend of Stalin, which jump-started the Great Purges in the Soviet Union. This was one of the biggest pistols of Asian crime. People nicknamed it the Black Star, and it had a reputation for power among the underworld. Gun pulled on you stories thread. Hey Kay, had a fun story from this week. Thought I'd share it and see if anyone else wanted to share as well. Be me, carpenter, doing some side weatherization work for a local agency. They sent us to remodel this guy's trailer. Ate some bad burritos the day before. Arrive at home, knock, no answer. Call name loudly and knock, no answer. Open door and knock and call name, no answer. Whatever, we have an appointment with him. He's probably still asleep. This happens regularly. Enter home. Suddenly have to shit. Bathroom is next to his bedroom. See him in bed asleep. All is well. Enter bathroom. Spend the next 20 minutes sporadically liquid shitting. Finish. Open door. He's sitting up in bed, holding gun. Ask me who I am. Oh hey, I'm I'm just here doing work for agency on your house. Oh, okay, cause I have a Glock 357 here. Out of half knowing I just gotta be cool about this and half autism, I'm like, oh sweet, I've got a G17 at home. Sorry I had to use your bathroom. I might actually have to go home now. Turns out this guy's had multiple brain surgeries and some apparent history helping law enforcement. So told me he thought I was a cartel member there for revenge. Ended up being cool. Played a Bluegrass Dark Side of the Moon cover album for him today, and he was like, man, it's a good thing I didn't shoot you the other day. I'd have never gotten to hear this album. Lol. Be me, walking on street. Cop pulls up and over. Steps out of the car and points a gun at me. Stand there like, what the fuck, not moving, but just standing there. Oh shit, and on. My B. We had reports of some guy who robbed someone with a gun. Heading down North Road. Bro, this is South Road. Aw shit. Got turned around. See you next week, and on. That's about it. Most of the times guns got pulled on me, it was boring, uneventful, and rather annoying. Desu. Be me, 17, at a theme park that does Wild West recreations with actors in costume. The guests are part of the experience, and depending on what the guests do during the day shifts the story going on. Walking with family, enjoying the day. Get called over by one of the bandit characters. I need the XP.png. He points at a couple of other guests and a deputy carrying some chest of gold. You steal that and I can make you a rich man. Yeehaw, Dutch.wav. Leg it up the road, hide behind the corner of the store. Wait until I see the deputy and the guests. Gold is plastic, but it glimmers all the same. Jump out. Get my hands on the chest. Deputy doesn't hesitate. Draws his blank-firing prop gun and sticks it under my nose. Drop it, son. Scared shitless. Comply. Run another direction as fast as I can. Everyone had a good laugh about it. I met the bandit character in the saloon later that day. He dropped the character and told me nobody had ever taken him up on trying to steal the gold, and it was the funniest thing he had seen that summer. Glad to know I was the only one retired enough to try. First time, driving on the highway. Truck cuts right in front of me without signaling. I honk. He flips me off. I drive up next to him to fuck with him. Stupid, I know. Look over and he's pointing a Glock at me. Declare it a draw and let him pass. Second time. House next to mine is abandoned because the previous deadbeat owners skipped town. Sometimes I sneaked into the backyard to smoke and listen to music, enjoying the solitude. One time another neighbor thinks I'm a vagrant/burglar, so they call the cops. 3 cops burst through the gate, get me completely by surprise. Put your hands up! Put your hands up right now! At least 2 guns pointed at me. Get detained. I explain I live next door and they let me go. Be dumbass teenager. Friends and I go to abandoned factory to spend night. Bring airsoft and paintball gats to fuck around. Nearby neighbor sees children having innocent fun and calls cops. Cops arrive. Most of us book it into the woods, some holding on to airsoft guns. Cops catch up to us and draw on 3 scared shitless kids. Get escorted back in handcuffs. And Boomer Sheriff gives speech about what could have happened while pointing translucent blue airsoft gun with orange tip at us. Get a free ride home. I would get it if any of the airsoft shits looked anything close to real, but they didn't. Maybe Officer Bolt just didn't take account of what was in our hands enough to tell the difference. Another. Hanging out at friend's dad's house. Dad offers to take us shooting. Go to random spot in the woods with Glock and a couple shotguns. No ear pro, so dumb but good fun. He's showing us a feature on his Glock with a trigger-activated laser. He demonstrates this feature by pointing the gun, loaded, at our chests. Finger on trigger to activate laser. He was also most certainly drunk during this. One more. Move to city. Drive shitty trash-filled beater. Work in nice affluent area. Driving home when get pulled over by that town's cops. They approach vehicle on both sides with guns drawn and at low ready. Me seeing this in the mirror, scared shitless and white-knuckling the steering wheel so I don't get whoopsied. All this for a blown headlight. I'm positive that the reason for their reaction was that I looked too poor to be driving in that area, and they were dicks to boot. Twitchy faggots. Starting to get into shooting as a hobby. Frequent a private range when they allow public to shoot. Start their boomer process to join, go to meetings, get sponsored. Join NRA. This was like 15 years ago. One day shooting buddy's old as shit .22 rifle. We shoot the wood chips that come off the target's backers that land on the ground. They're a fun challenge target that fly up and react when shot. Boomer range officer comes over to talk. Tells us we're retards for not shooting at the large bullseye target instead of plinking wood chips. The Boomer RO was known to yap every time people want to shoot. Boomer RO tells us about some guy he kicked out earlier that day. As he's telling the story about how some dipshit turned and pointed a loaded gun at me, he mimics the same actions. With his fucking Carry 1911. Blood runs cold. Goosebumps. The gun is pointed at my belly and his finger is on the trigger. He realizes and tries to play it off. We leave. Never come back. Gun dreams. Have you had any gun dreams recently, Anon? A few days ago, I dreamt that I was inspecting an MR-73 revolver in a gun store. Its finish was well worn, and it had a rail on top with a scope mounted. It had a 3.5-inch barrel. I think that in real life the M73s have either 4 or 6-inch barrels. It was going for $836 and some numbers of cents. I can't remember the cents. I could have bought it, but it would have been eaten in my funds for PC parts, and I wanted a longer barrel. If there's interest in this thread, I can go through my diary for some other gun dreams. Had a dream I had a pet shark that was 4 or 5 inches long that my dad kept trying to kill. He'd come over to my house, try to fill the tank with lasagna. And then at the end, he stole one of my CZs and shot the tank, causing all the water and the shark to spill out onto the carpet. I don't own any fish, let alone a shark, but it made me really sad. My favorite gun dream is from years ago. I was hired to be a night guard at my local Cabela's and fought off roping ninjas while operating operationally. When morning finally came, I was rewarded with SVDs. Like the guy just kept placing SVDs into my cradled arms until I felt like I was going to drop them and panic. Then I woke up. Dreamt I had an AUG. I will buy one later this year. Heavy trigger dream. Absolute anxiety. I dreamt that I had a Mag 7. I chambered around, then became concerned. I ejected around and saw that it was dimpled. A small divot, as if it was hit by a striker, was in the primer. The rounds were more like oversized pistol rounds than shot shells. In the same night, I dreamt that the frame of my Jericho had broken and that I was hopelessly looking for a way to fix it. I dreamt that I was examining a most unusual Kalashnikov rifle. One half of its receiver was cut out, through which I could see its internal mechanisms. The other half, on the right side, had a kind of music box clamped to it. The box and its clamping arms were painted glossy red. In white. On through the aperture on the left side, I saw the rifle's mechanisms and the gears of the music box. The rifle's insides were those of a typical Kalashnikov. I did not see the trigger group. The music box was a mess of gears, and I do not know how music boxes worked. It would not have been mechanically accurate. I planned to fire the rifle, but I awoke. I can't remember the tune that played, but I remembered that firing the gun would change the tune. I also had a dream where I found the Fountain of Youth in the burnt ruins of Waco, and I had a fight with the head of the ATF. It's multiple paragraphs long, and the feds will psychoanalyze me if I type all of it here. Hypothetical space war thread. Way in the future, how do you think space warfare will be fought? Same as now, missiles and drone spam. Maybe energy weapons by then. Applying modern analogs, I think, would be like a fusion of air combat and naval combat. Since there's no air resistance in space, the ships can look like anything, but they'd probably be angular with flat surfaces, like modern stealth ships to deflect radar beams. Conversely, they'd have massive radars, not only because space is a vast medium, but also to detect and avoid asteroid fields. In that same vein, I think the ships will also be pointed like spears to deflect oncoming asteroids. As for armament, large radar-guided missiles will be launched from ship to ship, similarly to modern AA-BVR combat, but the ships will be able to shoot down each other's missiles. Railguns would also be used, running off massive nuclear reactors which run the ship's electronics. There'll be no space fighters and no space dogfighting like in Star Wars. Since there's no air resistance, missiles will be able to pull infinite Gs and they'll just destroy any manned aircraft. Most likely, if aircraft are launched from ships, they'll be like AWACS with radars that serve to extend the radar range of the mothership/fleet. Stealth? Deflect radar beams? Utterly useless. There's no stealth in space. You will radiate enough heat to be visible from halfway across the solar system on thermals. Or you will cook yourself in short order. Couldn't they just assume you were a star or something? And how many stars are moving across the solar system? Battle space choked to fuck with every kind of interference possible to make up for how easy it is to identify objects in space. Ultra-long shit matched with heavy point defense capabilities and short-range shit, all moving at retarded velocities to try and make up for the easy identification of projectiles and time to avoid ships would have. And lasers, because lasers are fast. TLDR, visibility, interference, and speed weed are gonna be big. Star Wars kind of got it right. Flood space with space drones. Fuck you, we'll be doing drone warfare for the rest of time. Buzz droid, my beloved. I'd say torpedoes and carrier ops. Mech fighter and bombers. Unless you have a Star Trek situation where you have directed energy weapons like phasers, where it's point and shoot. Then it's a game of who has the bigger power reactor. It'd probably be even more gay since we'll have rods of gods all aimed at each other, and any war comes with the threat of instant exterminatus, so everyone just edges at the idea of Space War I, and we never get it. Kinda like World War III right now. Considering that, with current and predictable tech, it still takes vast amounts of money to get every kilo into orbit, and that the only parts of space worth fighting in are explicitly Earth's orbital area, and the satellites you'll find there. Space warfare is going to be limited entirely to ASAT weapons, most likely high-altitude launched missiles, until technology moves so far past what we have today that our attempts to predict what effect it'll have on combat become ridiculous. They will be more like naval battles over huge distances than fighter battles. Space fighter is a trope born out of applying World War II to space, but space does not follow the same rules. To justify a realistic single-crew minimal combat ship, you need to create a custom setting and play with the definition. In a vacuum, nothing slows down projectiles. You don't need a fighter to move/drop a missile closer, nor shoot a railgun projectile. You only get good range out of nuclear propulsion, which would be for big spaceships. Stealth in space is impossible. Decoys are impossible. False flags are impossible. It's also going to be impossible to dodge any proper weapon, even if you had the propellant. You only need manned spaceships so humans stay in the loop of the AI doing the work better. Finally, space debris make any battle in busy orbits genocidal by nature. Today we don't have enough stuff to trigger a Kessler effect, but all those futuristic gigantic space stations would, filling orbits with anti-tank bullets for several decades to eternity. How do you think space warfare would be fought? Through economy. Faction A outperforms Faction B, takes the best spots on the moon, ignores Mars, it's useless. Outproduce everybody. Use soft power to become the new standard for technology. Eventually, Faction B either ends up dependent on Faction A or a non-issue like North Korea. Meanwhile, Faction A becomes 100% self-sufficient in every domain, and the faction representing mankind, able to build wasteful megastructures just to show off. Even if Faction B threatened to shoot nukes if they aren't given equal opportunities, they would only reveal their weaknesses and be sabotaged in billions of other ways. Faction B will have a better chance of fighting ideological warfare from the inside. After a war exercise, I received written feedback from my men that I went from 0 to 100 too often, that I always raged at them and got in physical confrontations with them when I didn't get the results I wanted. What can I do to be a better leader? What can I do to be a better leader when calmly giving them orders doesn't put them to work? I have to yell at them to get them to do anything at all, though I wish it were otherwise. T. Corporal Squad Leader. Physically a small, non-threatening manlet, combat hobbit, if it matters. Be more positive and lead. Act like you're leading around children. Shouldn't be hard, given the height. Will raging at your lads make them do their job better? Leading isn't about just ordering and on. There needs to be a balance between being amiable and imperative. You can't be their leader if you only act like their handler. If you have to spaz out in manlet rage, you've already failed. Leading people is generally very challenging, but having to supervise 18 to 24-year-old dumbasses, security, not military, I found that you sort of turn a corner once they actually want to do what you need them to do. Motivation can be negative or positive, and I found that positive is particularly important, with negative being more of a plan B option. Both have to come from respect though, which has to be earned. For instance, never make a subordinate do something you aren't willing to do. Always demonstrate the ability to do something they think is difficult. Make it look easy and lead by example. Nobody likes a screeching manlet, but everybody can respect an officer and a gentleman who steps up, shows them how to do the hard shit, and never loses his cool without a damn good reason. Grow taller so you have authority and respect. Lead by example. Give praise only for excellence. Say nothing for fucking up other than what steps must be taken to ameliorate it. Only shout if it is a dangerous situation and you need to be heard. Shouting/getting angry is a learned behavior. Stop doing it. It accomplishes nothing. Communicate what needs to be done. Lead by example. Anticipate problems and find the correct sequence of actions to get the most out of each individual. You are a leader, not a dad. Solve the problems without emotion. And before a bunch of 30s and tryhards talk about how that's soft cuck shit, and how hard they had it, and how manly that makes them, I've spent multiple birthdays getting bruises photographed at the hospital in my upbringing, and gotten beat just about as hard as anyone in a first world country can without being removed to another environment by the state. I've also grown up in a very wealthy, successful place with a lot of examples of excellent leadership. And the very best parents/leaders with the most success lead by leadership and encouragement. The best example was a kid who literally was maxed out in everything. Dad knew exactly what to say to guide everyone he worked with. This kid had to choose between Olympic cycling and medical school. Chose medical school. Always had a different gorgeous girlfriend. Was the rank below global in CSGO. Funny guy. Was also incredibly nice. Dad never hit him. AFAIK. And I never heard him yell. Last time I saw him 10 years ago, I was hanging up flyers on the NH main campus, and he was looking for his lab monkey, which had escaped. Lamau, take from this what you will. Lord Miles official. In the coming weeks, I will put out a survey for those looking to join the Haitian invasion. I'll ask about skills, fitness, military experience, religion, etc. If needed, you will be called on prior to the invasion. I will discriminate against every protected trait, and I will only take the best. I am working on funding. I am very serious about the invasion of Haiti. Operation Red Dog 2. How would you do it, Kay? Miles gets kidnapped again. These writers are getting fucking lazy with their retreading of already tired plot points. Where's he gonna stage from? The Dominican Republic? At any rate, I'm not adverse to a little filibustering. Not sure hunting, camping, target shooting, etc. would be quite what he's looking for. 5 surveys ago, I lost 30,000 Haitian raiders in the blink of an eye. And the chartered towboat from the Dominican Republic just fucking sank. Tomorrow, there will be no shortage of fat bodies. No shortage of sinking to Davy Jones' locker with 200 pounds of gear. I know you understand. Cut off porta potty from outside support. Starve him into submission. Every applicant is gonna glow like phosphorus. What the fuck would you even do there once you have it? 30 infested, earthquake-prone, disease-ridden shithole with literally nothing of worth in, on, or around it that only survives thanks to foreign aid. A privately led invasion and takeover of a part of an island that's about 600 miles from Miami. I'm sure that'll last. But vetiver exports. Yeah, that fucking tracks. Would care about luxury perfumes, stupid larpers. Anyway, yeah, basically what 800 said. Blockade their waters, shouldn't be too hard against a non-existent navy and barely 2,000 soldiers, couple of privately owned boats and some shitty MGs and you're set. Never need to step a foot on the island until you take it over. Assuming the international community doesn't instantly rally against you and easily dislodge you, which it most likely will. Your fight isn't with the locals, it's with maintaining good PR. If you can convince the world what you're doing is fine, you'll face very little military retaliation. This is honestly more of a pull thread than a K one. It's about maintaining the glorious Anglosphere tradition of filibustering. Alright, let's make this quick. The UN will be here soon. Invade Haiti? Fucking why? There's literally no potential economic gain to be had from that country. If Operation Red Dog was anything to go by, basically turn the island into a criminal's paradise and set up casinos as well. Unless he's got a bunch of M72 laws hidden up his ass, he'll have no way to engage MRAPs. This is gonna realistically require several million in black market equipment if he plans to take territory and not immediately get repulsed by peacekeepers. Or is this more of a dollar discount Bay of Pigs? Quick hit on whoever's in charge, then immediately bounce. This is either going to go like a botched Black Lagoon episode with the plot armor taken off, or the third Wild Geese movie we've always wanted. Either way, it'd be a glorious bit of entertainment if it actually happens. Part of me wonders if he somehow got some Saudi prince drunk, got compromat, and now he's got Arabucks funding him. My understanding is that the total strength of Haiti's military plus the peacekeeping mission is about 3,100 men. Assuming it evolves into a three-way between the homeless geese, the gangs, and the government/UN forces, he's losing an attritional fight unless he's got at least 9,000 guys. We can reduce this number if a smaller force is landed covertly at night and everybody's decked out with night fighting equipment. NVGs, thermals, LAMs, sappers land ahead of the main force and disrupt communication and reinforcement routes. Additional commando teams do diversionary operations with explosives on key government facilities. If all his guys were hard-ass XSOF and decked out to match, the peacekeepers, gangs, and government forces could all collectively be whittled out by 500 men. It would require substantial local support, however, plus some serious false flagging to get the other sides fighting each other. Dashes, safe houses, and escape routes all planned in advance if things go south. Also, the casualty rate would be fucking ugly, especially since there's no logistical train. What the guys have is all they're gonna get unless they source local. To reduce attrition, they'll need good armor. Protec 9812-R1s are ideal, but $1,350 a pop, and there's no way Lord Farquaad can get thousands of them in time. That'd be a huge order and would take months to a year to spool up. Also, drones and mortars. They'd be essential. 1 to 2 tow and javelin teams could handle the MRAPs. How many literal retards will actually get killed for this shit? How do they expect to reach the island? How will they acquire all the weaponry? How will they fight the gangs and the Kenyan military at the same time? It's not even funny. This is just cringe. If Lord Miles, who is a glowy, fun fact, A few months or a year or so ago, people were sucking him off in a thread, and I said something like, let me guess, he went to university but randomly dropped out and suddenly became this weird wacky guy who travels to loads of different countries seemingly with no issue with money or communication, on top of being above average intelligence but disenfranchised with his lot. And their reply was obviously, yeah, but that just means he is based and doesn't get zogged by the educational system. I then kindly pointed out that MI6 hires people from universities like that. People who are smart but directionless and are only there because they think they should be there. Lord Miles is a glowy asset, and him going on about Mahatian invasion is literally just him earmarking potential threats to the UK and her allies. That's it. Same shit when Pol tried to do the invasion of Tuvalu. How many literal retards will actually get killed for this shit? If he grooms in the right discords, he could get a force of maybe 50 bipolar incels, but 90% of them can't drive, so he's going to have to drive a loser bus around America to pick his piss platoon up. How do they expect to reach the island? Either charter a boat like General Shepard said and smuggle equipment on board, or maybe create a shell corporation and get a shipping container on a freighter full of everybody's shit with fake papers. How will they acquire all the weaponry? A lot of fucking ITAR violations. How will they fight the gangs and the Kenyan military at the same time? If he busts his ass, he can get 50 men, many of whom are probably unstable and unreliable under pressure. He'll get mopped by the peacekeepers unless he has heat on his side. Realistic route is he gets a team of 4 ex-SOF dudes, they smuggle a Tech 50 or 2 in just to nail whoever's in charge, then immediately bounce like hell and get off the island. Call it a win. How many literal retards will actually get killed for this shit? None. How do they expect to reach the island? They won't. How will they acquire all the weaponry? They won't. How will they fight the gangs and the Kenyan military at the same time? They won't need to because they'll never leave. The most effective they'll be will be like when that guy from Soldier of Fortune magazine tried to organize a rescue of supposed POWs being held in Vietnam in the 80s, and they ended up setting up shop in a Thai brothel for like 9 months and using all the donation money to get rimmed while having ping pong balls fired at their heads. The big casualties will be from STDs. Do you believe the conspiracy theories that weapon systems we see are just the tip of the iceberg, and that the good stuff is being kept secret by defense companies never to see the light of day? More like the stuff DARPA keeps under lock and key falls into 2 categories. Highly experimental and unpredictable results once you press the button, and the shit that will make even a politician's skin crawl. Put them both together and you get a little fun cache of ways to fuck up the place in a bad pinch that's still technically short of going nuclear. No, war isn't funny enough to clown around in such a manner. Progress in most weapon systems is incremental and dependent on incremental improvements in unrelated fields and in ergonomics. You're stuck with trial and error, so in many cases, the trial guns are as good as it gets. Just consider that armies have been desiring semi-auto bow rifles since the late 19th century, but the tech and designs only got there during the very tail end of World War II. Anybody who isn't Germany will probably remember to take a long, hard look at the French experiences with early adaptations and tightly held secrets, and figure that you need to really test any weapon system and have a drill manual ready before you hand it over to the mouth breathers and crayon muncher. I've seen a flying triangle / Bellcraft, so yeah, no idea how any of that shit works, but it really does exist. Just some sort of expensive stuff that probably costs hundreds of trillions of dollars and the literal smartest minds in the world. There's been plenty of cases of technology being hidden before anyway, so to say it's impossible is not just naive but fucking retarded, lol. Yeah, what do you think all those UFO sightings are? Stars in aircraft, spotted by people who look up to the sky for the first time in their life right after having read a UFO story. It's funny how guys like you still deny stuff like Project Blue Book existing. People used to think shit like the B-2 was another fake UFO story until it turned out to be an actual thing. It's not uncommon for the military to hide their experimental tech. The US has very consistently shown off their secret projects once they're ready for action. It's the missions that were secret, not the fact that the US has these in their arsenal. The general rule is whatever you see, the military is about 10 to 20 years ahead of them. We're beyond what you see as weapons, but we're in robotic warfare era now, and the government and private sector have mind-reading tech. Probably the real purpose of the 5G towers. You're going to be fighting a humanoid robot that can think for itself and read your fucking mind, not just predict your every movement based on slight inputs. Look up MRI mind reading. I'd be surprised if they didn't have some kind of civilization-ending staple crop targeting bioweapon or a really nasty computer virus that'd make Y2K real. Triangle Craft TR-3B is just an extremely sneaky recon asset. Two of my family members saw them without knowing what they were near a shut-down Air Force base. Said they were completely silent, moving too slow to be a plane, but also definitely not a helo. They have the same sort of exotic VTOL system that allows them to hover with basically no signature and also accelerate rapidly. As for DARPA black bag stuff, it exists, but it's not the sort of stuff they're gonna give to every grunt. It's the sort of stuff they developed decades ago and have been tinkering with since for special use cases. Breaking into defended airspace. Remember the Nighthawk didn't exist until it was bombing critical CNC targets in Baghdad? That in itself was a hand tip to the rest of the world post-Cold War. You have no idea what else we have. Don't fuck with us. The fact they exposed, needlessly because we'd have won the ground war either way, the ability to penetrate the most heavily defended airspace in the world just to make a point to speak to them having other tricks up their sleeve. Because that's a real nice trick to have the enemy be unaware of, and exposing it diminished its value greatly. It's not going to be Wonder Waff or super guns for G.I. Joes. It's going to be sideways technology that allows the solving of otherwise intractable edge cases. Tanks will still be killed by other tanks, smart bombs, or javelins. The black bag will be stuff like the ability to fry every electronic circuit in a targeted area via some sort of exotic energy projector while leaving your own unharmed, because the ability to control the field is that good. Being able to drop the enemy instantly, running massages manually would itself win war of maneuver, or like the ability to manipulate weather. No need to bomb the Three Gorges Dam when you can just cause it to rain in China until the thing bursts. They may have tested the capability a few years ago, but stopped short of actually collapsing the dam. Absolutely, but it's not really what you think. R&D develops a lot of cool shit that makes it to testing phase, but 99% of it doesn't get approved because of cost issues. By this, I mean they don't even get submitted for review because the company that thought of the widget knows it wouldn't get considered by their customer, the government, under any circumstances due to cost, so they just hold on to it till they can get the cost down so they can sell it later. I reckon if they draft me for war, they'll have me haul shit since I'm a truck driver. How safe/dangerous is that? Safer? Truck drivers might get attacked because logistics are a key thing enemies attack, near pure or not. But you will have niggas in a convoy who will fuck their shit up on your behalf. I saw a study somewhere that said the average Motor T truck driver saw more consistent combat than infantry in the Iraq War. OIF-2 in 2004 to 2005 was a disaster, with so many convoys shot up that they were sending truck drivers from the Navy and Air Force into combat with no training or guidance. Just head down that road and don't die. The Army has a really good series of papers and journals about the history of convoy ops in early OIF. Some of the stories could be made into a Michael Bay movie. Nah, they'll save those jobs for the people who can't do much else. If you can hold a gun and go on a hike, then you'll be cannon fodder. I have the very unique skill of, driving, which they will surely utilize. Meatwave for you. A commercial driving license isn't nothing. A person with one of those could reasonably dodge the draft if they signed up with a military logistics contractor. The Army and McDonald's mobile food trucks are all going to be automated. Atlanta. How long until one of those gets stolen? About as long as me taking your ass virginity. Atlanta, 2 hours. I was attached to a transport company, so I have actual direct knowledge of this. I worked with an NG transport company. It is mostly fine, just besides the usual behind-the-lines dangers. They are truck drivers in camo. That's it. Yes, you have a few guns, but normally you have security. You're there to haul shit and that is it. From personal experience, US, if you are a Reserve/National Guard unit, the active duty grunt types take a couple of weeks to get used to you. Then they will choose you over the active duty guys 99% of the time. In the US Army, there's a whole class of units, mostly logistics/MPs. where the reserve and especially National Guard units are far better at their jobs than active duty units. If you just want to drive a truck, probably not get killed, get the job done, get a half-decent amount of respect, then a USARNG transport unit of your nation's version of it, it is the job for you because they are better at it than anyone else and get left alone. Motor T was how a lot of females ended up with combat action ribbons in Iraq. Careful with that thinking, Anon. Logistics are arguably more susceptible than infantry nowadays. Civilian combat readiness. How does somebody ready themselves for combat without joining the military who can't for legitimate reasons? How does someone condition themselves for such a stressful, high-octane environment to the point that they can handle themselves and do whatever they need to do? Physical fitness obviously helps the body prepare for conflict, but how does one train the mind? What could realistically prepare more average people for warfare? Go to South Africa for a while. Cheaper and more effective to go to Detroit. I'm fat and lazy and I refuse to wake up before 10 a.m. Are those legitimate reasons? The military itself struggles to get guys ready to face actual combat and training. It's not just something that you can simulate safely and reliably. The best thing they give is discipline and repetitive training and skills you use in combat as a team, so that your brain just needs to focus less on decision making and just automatically does the basics needed to survive contact and support your section. After that part, you generally move into reaction to contact as a section, which is something you don't have as a civilian, using equipment and supports that a civilian also does not have access to, meaning there's probably zero point in training these things. The military is also able to drill the unholy fuck out of people, over and over again, all day for weeks on end. It's just not something that can be simulated outside that environment. In my humble opinion, you will react however you're gonna react. So just train things that make sense to your situation. Don't try to train like a soldier because you're not. You're in a totally different situation than them. Train survival skills, outdoor stuff, deer stalking, camo, shooting skills, not fucking clearing rooms, and most importantly, as you've said yourself, physical fitness. The fitter you are, the easier literally every single other task imaginable becomes. You will react however you're gonna react, so just train things that make sense to your situation. Don't try to train like a soldier because you're not. You will react under stress the way you were trained. However, and to what end you were trained. As a civilian, you can go on patrol at 4:30 a.m. with your rifle. Did you remember to chamber around? It's so quiet out there. Everything will hear you if you forgot. What about your gun controls? Fire? Safe? Do you have to look in the dark, or do you know them in your head? The point is to train by doing. Doing creates questions. The answers train you. How well can you run your radio? Program new frequencies without manual? Antenna skills? Avoid being located? How far can you run in 10 minutes? How long to cover 5 miles with gear? One shot, one kill at 200 yards? What does it take? That is what an individual infantryman should know. Then you need a network of people who you can trust in your area. Together you build deeper capacity. Maybe one is a mechanic or a nurse, or good with working dogs. Can you carry someone? Care for them if they cannot be moved until help arrives? Ask yourself, historically, how did successful irregular warfare units defeat professional military units? There are many instances. The U.S. military also studies this. What did the U.S. military conclude, and how can you apply those lessons, or what countermeasures could you use to stop or evade a professional force using guerrilla doctrine? I teach people to skydive for a living. You will react in a stressful and sensory overload situation based on genetics, who you are, and familiarity. I can train you for 8 hours on what we're gonna do, walk you through it, and simulate it dozens of times. But a full 10 to 25% of students just fucking blank on their Cat A jump, while another 25% are there but not responding in any meaningful way to commands or cues. After a second jump or time in the tunnel, performance is much improved generally. But there are about 5 to 10% of students who we straight up tell they can do tandems, but they will never be a skydiver. To pass Cat A, all you have to do is attempt to deploy your parachute at the correct altitude. So no amount of training will ensure you will react correctly or at all in a combat situation. Most people would be confused, looking for someone else to emulate or straight up freeze, by having a large group of friends and family willing to fight with you. When civil war breaks out, it's the large groups and clans that go out and win. It's not 500 1v1 encounters over 300 days. It's 2 or 3 10v1 or 20v3 situations. Physical fitness obviously helps the body prepare for conflict, but how does one train the mind? What could realistically prepare more average people for warfare? 3-gun and getting reps in. Point of reps is to make things muscle memory, so when you're in a super stressful situation, there's less to think about. Your body just does stuff. No fat, no poop, yelling the N-word in the hood. And come on, there's a reason veterans have been valued since the beginning of time. Just study drone stuff. By donating 200 billion USD to Israel immediately. How does someone condition themselves for such a stressful, high-octane environment to the point that they can handle themselves and do what they need to do? By training and going to military courses and conscription. Shit, it ain't that hard. Quit looking for a perfect solution. Just get out there and train your ass a bit. Go become a paramedic. You'll get plenty of experience in stressful, shitty situations. Learn land nav, learn first aid, learn tracking, learn. List 10 takeaways from the Ukraine war. Imagine it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rethink your country's military forces. Cheap drones are king if your war descends into a World War I slugfest. 1. I still don't care about the rest of the world. 2. We should just nuke the rest of the world. You need a strong air force and nuclear weapons. Never give up nuclear weapons. Ever. 1. Wars of conquest are still a thing. 2. War crimes and genocide are tolerated. 3. EU is not only worthless, but counterproductive. 4. Lol, hobby drones wrecking everything. 5. Landmines work. 6. So much for all that faggot hand-wringing on cluster bombs, landmines, mercenaries, POW/civilian torture and execution, and genocide. 7. Somehow North Korea is both relevant and semi-competent. 8. Taiwan might get invaded. 9. China can just steal islands from Philippines using violence and everyone cucks without shooting back. Am I at 10 yet? Nukes are the ultimate insurance. Guarantees on paper you can wipe your ass with. Meat assaults are even less effective than they were during World War II. The advent of precision-guided munitions saw to that. From cruise missile to drones, sensors and electronics rule the day. The human body is way too fragile for precision-guided industrial war. All it takes is a single shrapnel or bullet to kill or maim it. Given that going forward it's either going to be a mix of heavy armor plus automaton spam, like drones for assault operations, or a breakthrough in prosthetic tech that allows artificial limbs directly connected to the bone and nerves that are just as good, if not better, than organics. Torso and head regions are reasonably well protected in between Kevlar plates and helmets. Losing arms and legs are pretty much life-changing events, and perma-cripples when it should be merely a painful but annoying experience. SPAAGs are making a big comeback. There's a reason Gepard is the most highly regarded piece of German engineering by Ukrainians. Combined arms and the logistics tail are more important than ever. Zagroid failure to secure local air superiority and make effective fire calls in the early stages led to the stalemate and gruesome grind that is bleeding them dry. Standalone brigades are a meme born from the guerrilla warfares of the last decades. In conventional war, larger multi-brigade formations like Corps are a bare minimum. 1. Quality over quantity. Looking at you, India. 2. Most nation-states these days will not roll over to military aggression. 3. You need a competent central bank to economically survive as an aggressor state. 4. Aggressor states will become international pariahs. 5. Having parallel military forces to your regular army is a bad idea. 6. Drones, drones, drones. 7. War is not a math equation. This one is for the post-Soviet states. 8. Unless you are fighting the Americans, don't worry too much about long-range missiles. 9. Your Air Force will not save you. 10. Your NCOs and enlisted should know the real war is about to start. Blocks your path. So how would you effectively deal with these? Explosives? Artillery? Send someone on a suicide run with some pliers and anti-kite gloves? Artillery? We tried this in World War I already. Didn't work. I think the best suggestion we've seen is pole vaulting. You get the 45-year-old Mobic out there for a crash course in track and field. Give him a long pole. They may not be athletic, but they know their way around handling a long pole or two. Giant robots. Alternatively, use a forklift to drop a big old slab of metal or wood or whatever on top of the wire and drive over it. Note that this obviously won't stop artillery, mines, and all the other shit concertina wire is supposed to be deployed with. Send someone on a suicide run with a Bangalore torpedo. I could see a drone with a dead cord kind of working, like those line-charging throwing vehicles for minefields. Army Future Command, if you read this, you owe me $12. Venmo is fine. This is the one time hitting something with a long stick is the right choice. Just beat it until it's flattish. But it's easier said than done if you're taking fire, I guess. Battle Drill 7 is your friend. Essentially, set up a support by fire position ahead of the main assault force. Move to your last available covered/concealed position in concert with screening fires from arty/cast/whatever you got. Have the SBF suppress the objective/area around the breach point while throwing tons of smoke and other obscurants, SOSRA, look it up. Send engineers to the breach point with grappling hooks to clear for tripwires or mines, and carry an explosive or mechanical breaching tools. Explosive is best. Blow the breach point/cut it. Have assault force move through the breach while both the big SBF and local SBFs are rocking. Secure a foothold with grenades. Set up a far side security/SBF and start suppressing the far side of the objective so everyone else can plow through, and systematically clear the trench/bunker system/encampment behind the wire. Reconsolidate, send up reports, divvy out ammo, get medical aid to the wounded. There will be lots of casualties. Assess whether or not you can conduct on a follow-on mission. If you did it right, you may have suffered heavy casualties but have taken the objective. Wired obstacles are a bitch, even with combined arm/joint forces. Cutting barbed wire in a single-man tank. In this steel tank resembling a broken and discarded cannon, a scout can creep over the ground unsuspected. If only you knew how good things really were. Jumps over. Not today.
About to meet his death.